Hello friends, I'm Pastor Suzy Burba from First Congregational Church in Braintree, Massachusetts, and I greet you today from the Ware River estuary. I had to turn the camera around so actually the water's out in front of me, just the lighting was really off, so unfortunately I had to angle it this way. And there's a great place to see birds. I've been watching 5 snowy egrets out in front of me. And this estuary is home to over 100 different migratory and indigenous birds. It's also home to various shellfish beds. And it functions as a nursery for numerous kinds of fish who swim upstream to lay their eggs. So it is an important place for our wildlife here in southeastern Massachusetts. On to this week's edition of Food for the Soul. Birds overhead. So today I want to talk about different names of God that we find in the Hebrew Bible. So why do this? There are subtleties that we discover when we look at the Hebrew of these names, and it communicates to us different aspects of God's personhood, different qualities and attributes that we can ascribe to God. The first one I want to talk about is Elohim. And Elohim is used in the Bible more than 2,000 times. We first encounter it in Genesis 1:1, where it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." So this is saying that God is the majestic one, the majestic creator that has made all that is in this earth to sustain us and for us to enjoy. An interesting tidbit about Elohim is that it's a plural noun. It might seem weird that there's a plural noun for the singular God, but the point here is that it's communicating that the one God is the God above all others who are ascribed the name God, the God above all else and all the earth. And that leads me into the next name that I want to talk about, which is Adonai. So Adonai is also a plural noun, but the principle is the same. God is above all else. A literal translation of Adonai is my lords or my masters. So actually it's more of a title than a name. You know, we have lords, we don't really use this term anymore, but lords over geographic areas. So there are human lords, but the Lord is the Lord over the whole earth. So it's communicating God's sovereignty over all that is. And we find Adonai in the Bible 449 times, so not quite as much as Elohim. And Adonai came into use in the Bible as a replacement for the final name of God that I want to talk about. And this name of God is considered among our Jewish sisters and brothers too sacred to utter out loud. And there are also Christians who refrain from saying it out loud. I am among them, but for the purposes of education and things like that, I will occasionally say it. So it's abbreviated YHWH, or the Hebrew Yod He Vav He. And the best pronunciation that can really that scholars have settled on, because Hebrew isn't written with the consonants, with the vowels, but it would be translated or spoken out loud for when it is, which is rarely, as Yahweh. And I do encourage you, when you're in the presence of our Jewish sisters and brothers, to refrain from using this. Instead, you can say God or Lord, or if you really want to communicate which word for God you're talking about, you can say Jehovah. So that's some good ways to use this. And the YHWH really is my favorite name for God. And this is the one place where God gives God's name. It's not where humans are attributing a name to God. So Moses on the mountain receiving instructions, and he's got to go down and see the Hebrew people and tell them how things work and what to do. And he's kind of nervous, and he anticipates that the Hebrews are going to say, well, who sent you? Who said so? So Moses asks God's name. And God says, I am who I am. he answers with a verb, and it continues. This is my name forever, and this my title for all generations. God answered with a verb, and it's the verb to be, like the most important one we have. When you learn a new language, what's the first verb you learn? The verb to be. I am, you are, we are. So it's really an important one, and it expresses the existence of personhood, or should I make up a word? Godhood. So it's ongoing existence. It's telling us that God is active in our lives and in an ongoing manner. So this is my favorite term for God. So looking at these names, do you have a favorite? Maybe it's the majestic creator, the Lord above all else, or the Lord that is and will always be. These names don't describe the fullness of God. There's no number of names or words that we can really come up with to describe all that God is. God transcends our language, but the names help us to understand the attributes of God. So I invite you to think about, what are some of your favorite names for God? There might be others that you have that just in English. I've heard God described as a gardener, the one who tends the earth. They're all different things. So I encourage you to think about this, and it is a pleasure to be with you again today. And I'm going to flip the camera around so that you can see a little bit of what is out in front of me. Many blessings to you.